going to science space.
Do you have a face mask?
Yes, I have. You want? Do you want? Can you hold it for me?
Just you put.
We're going to
in just a moment. There's a few quick things we need to let you all know first. Some stuff up here is a little bit dangerous, so I need everyone staying in their seats throughout our entire show. But if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to stick your hand up and ask them, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you guys might have. And if I have any questions for you guys, feel free to shout out some answers if you think you know them. And if you adults want to take any photos or videos, that's entirely fine, just as long as we're not videotaping the entire show. And if you guys need to leave for any reason during the show, just head straight on out the doors you came in through. But the doors do lock behind you, so if you want to come back in, you'll have to find someone who works here who can let you back in. And if there is an emergency, just keep calm, follow me, and one of our 2 emergency exits, that door over there, and that door just over there. And now we can get started with our show. Who here likes bubbles? Hands up if you like bubbles. Perfect. Come to the right, please. So we're going to blow plenty of bubbles today, and we're also going to learn all about the 4 different things we need to blow bubbles. So the first and most important thing we need is water. And I've got some water here. What do you think I can blow a bubble with just water on its own? Well, let's test it out, shall we? I'll dip it in here, and we'll give it a wave. Do I have any bubbles? So our bubbles aren't working very well here, so let's try something else we know we can blow up. Do you guys know what this is? Perfect. And balloons are made out of rubber. And you know what rubber does very well? It stretches. So if I want to blow up my balloon, I'm going to fill it full of air. And my balloon stretches out, doesn't it? So if I couldn't stretch out my balloon, it wouldn't blow up very big, would it? We don't need a balloon. So our balloon stretches out, but the problem with our water, and the reason we can't blow bubbles with just water, is water's not very stretchy. So do you guys have any idea what I might add to my water to make it stretchier? Oh, soap? Well, I've got a mix of soap and water just there. Do you think I can make a bubble with it? Yes! Well, let's try it out. Let's give it a wave, ready? Perfect. We've got some bubbles. So if we look at our thing here, ready? We stretched out the bubble mix. So when we have our soap and water together, they stretch out to make our bubbles. So this thing here is a bit like our bubble mix, and when we mix our soap and water together, we can stretch it out nice and big and get our bubbles. And then we pop them, and they get nice and small again. So we have our first 2 things we need to blow bubbles. We have soap and water. But there are plenty of other things we need, or 2 other things we need to blow bubbles. And we're already using them. One of them is this thing I've got in my hand here. And here at Science Space, we call this a bubble wand. And there's a very special thing that bubble wands have to be. They have to be a closed shape, which means we can go all the way around the edge here, and there's no holes. There's one nice big hole in the middle there. And that lets us make something we call a bubble film. Can you guys all say that with me on 3? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bubble film. And that is that little thin layer of bubble mix there. Can you guys all see a little layer of bubble mix in the middle? So that gives us something we can stretch out to make our bubbles. It's pretty hard to stretch out our bubble mix when it's just in a big puddle like that. So we need a nice thin layer to make our bubbles. And we're going to use our special powers of observation that we scientists love to use. And can you guys tell me what shape my bubble wand is? It's a circle. And what shape are my bubbles? Yeah, they're a shape that's like a circle. They're called a sphere. It's like a circle that's been stretched out. So if I use my circle bubble wand to get some circle or sphere-shaped bubbles, Do you think if I use a different shaped bubble wand, I'll get some different shaped bubbles? Who likes space? Oh, perfect. So I have a star-shaped bubble wand. Do you think we'll get some star-shaped bubbles? Well, let's test it out, guys. Alright, watching your bubbles nice and closely, ready? Are they stars? What about... Are those ones stars? Okay, so we're not getting any stars, but stars are pretty complicated, aren't they? There's a lot of points. So let's try something a little bit easier, maybe. Something like this. What shape's this one? Alright, we've got a triangle, a lot less points and corners. Do you think we'll get a triangle shape bubble? Let's try it out. Ready? Are they triangles? No, so we're not getting any triangle shaped bubbles either. But do you guys know what shape this one is? Yeah, it's a cube. So it's like a square, but it's like a stretched out square. So remember, our bubbles are spheres, like a big stretched out circle. I think if we used a cube, which is a big stretched out square, we could get a cube shaped bubble. Well, let's test it out, shall we? But this one's a bit too big for my bubble mix there. So we're going to get some help from my nice big container here. And we're going to dip our cube-shaped bubble wand in here. And right in the middle there, we've got our cube-shaped bubble. One other thing you guys might be able to see is all these bubble films around the edges attached to our cube. So let's see what happens if we pop those. Keep a nice close eye on our cube there. Is it still a cube? It's a sphere again. And it was a sphere the whole time, just a sphere in disguise. Because all those bubble films on the edges were pulling out on our sphere, so it looked like a cube. And there's a very good reason our bubbles are always going to be spheres and never any other shape. And that's because bubbles are very lazy. And they want to make the easiest shape they can possibly make. So you guys, I'm going to need you to help me out. We're going to use our fingers to draw some shapes in the air as quickly as we can. Do you think you can do that? So we're going to start off with a star. Make sure it has 5 points on it. Alright, now let's try a triangle. Make sure it has 3 nice sides. And now go for a square. Make sure it has all 4 sides. And try a circle. Just go round and round and round. Which one's the easiest? The circle's way easier. Because all the other shapes have all these points and corners that are very hard to make. But a circle, no points or corners, we just go round and round and round. So it's super easy, takes no energy at all to make a circle. And so our bubbles are always going to make circles or spheres. But if we can't change the shape of our bubbles, do you think we can change the size of our bubbles? Yeah. So you guys think if I used a bigger bubble wand, I'd get some bigger bubbles? Well, I've got this bubble wand here. Let's see if we get some bigger bubbles. Ready? So these are some pretty big bubbles now. But do you guys think that's the biggest we can go? What about this one? Ready? Bubbles now. But do you think we can go even bigger? Well, we've got this bubble wand here. And this is the biggest bubble wand we have here at Science Space. It's very hard to make them float around because remember, bubbles are lazy. So when they're a bit big like this, it's hard to make a giant sphere. But we can still do our best to make a big bubble snake. And even if we can't make any bigger bubbles, there are all sorts of things we can do with different size bubble rings. Who here likes trampolines? Well, so do bubbles. So if we pop a little bubble here, we can bounce it up and down on our bubble trampoline. And we can go inside a bubble. So we can make a nice small bubble. And we can use our bigger bubble one to catch our smaller bubbles inside of other bubbles. And what we can also do is find all sorts of different things we can make into bubble wands. So remember, a bubble wand has to be a closed shape. So anything that's a closed shape like this, with heaps of little tiny closed shapes. So if I dip that in my bubble mix here, and give it a nice big wave. With any racket you don't mind getting a little bit wet and soapy. And even something that doesn't look like a bubble wand, like this thing here. So all the little holes around the outside are their own bubble wands. So if I dip this in my bubble mix, and give it a nice big wave, sorts of things as bubble wands. Anything that has a closed shape. Even these things here might not look like bubble wands, but if I do that, is that a closed shape? Well, let's see if it works as a bubble wand. I'll dip my hands in the bubble mix, and we'll give it a blow, and we can blow some bubbles. And while my hands are wet, I can also show you guys how to make friends with a bubble. So usually when we touch a bubble, it pops because our hands are dry. But since my hands are wet and soapy, if I'm nice and gentle, I can catch a bubble. And so you can make friends with a bubble if you don't mind getting your hands a little bit wet and soapy. And now, while I dry off my hands, can anyone figure out the fourth and final thing we need to blow bubbles with? We have our soap and water and our bubble wand. What else are we using? What's the final thing? Anyone got any ideas? What do you think? Air! So, when I blow my bubble, we blow them and it's filled with air. So we need something to stretch out our bubble mix with. Just like our balloon, we fill it with air. We fill our bubbles with air as well. But we can fill them with other things. We can fill it with anything that's not going to pop our bubble. So, we're going to try and fill it with something super cold. So I'm going to get out some liquid nitrogen. But before I do it, I'm going to stick on some safety gear, because our liquid nitrogen is negative 196 degrees. So it's pretty dangerous. And we've got some right here. And if we pour it in our container here, you can see it bubbling away. You can see some stuff coming out of the top of my flask there, and if I pour it out, all that stuff, you see it made there. That's exactly what it looks like. They're clouds, just like you see in the sky. So the air is filled with water, and whenever we cool down the air, all that water collects together and turns into a cloud. So if we can make some clouds with our liquid nitrogen, do you think we could fill some bubbles up with clouds? Well, let's give it a try. So I've got a yogurt container here. We're going to use the top bit there because it's a closed shape as our bubble wand. And there's some water in the bottom there to help us make our clouds. So we're going to see if we can make some cloud bubbles. We'll pour some liquid nitrogen in. Let's see if we can make our bubble film. nitrogen, which is extra cold to me. But we're going to try and go the opposite direction now. We're going to get rid of our cold stuff, put our liquid nitrogen away, and our yogurt container. And we're going to go extra hot now. So right here, I have something called a flammable gas. And that means that we can set it on fire. So do you think if we filled our bubbles up with something you could set on fire, that we'd be able to set those bubbles on fire? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to take it a step further than that, because I'm going to get a nice big scoop of those bubbles in my hand and set them on fire there. Does that sound dangerous? Good, because it is. So please don't try this at home. I'm trained to do it safely and I've got my safety equipment with me, so come back here and watch us do it. So I've got my nice big apron here, and that's going to help stop my clothes from catching on fire. And I've also got this nice big safety, nice big mask there. That's going to help stop my face from catching on fire. And the final thing we're going to have to do is protect my arm. So I've got some water here, and I'm going to spray my arm with water. So some of you might have seen water being boiled on the stove before, and you might have noticed it can take a long time. And that's because water is very good at absorbing heat. So all this water on my arm is going to suck up all the heat from the fire and stop me from getting burned. Alright, we've got some bubble mix here, and we're going to make some bubbles. And we're going to pop my face mask on. Alright, let's get a nice big countdown from 3, guys. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Alright, we've got time to do that one more time. Who wants to see it again? Alright, we'll make sure there's a bit of extra water on my arm. And we'll make some extra bubbles. Alright, and this is the end of our show, so let's make sure our countdown is extra loud this time. Alright, big scoop. Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1! Alright, thank you all so much for joining me here in the science fair. That's all we've got time for today, so you can head on out through the doors and enjoy the rest of your day.